"My husband doesn't like you, Dad. He thinks you're pathetic." Those were the words that came out of my daughter Emily's mouth when I asked her why I wasn't invited to her wedding, and I swear to God, in that moment, something inside me shattered into a million pieces that I knew could never be put back together. Let me back up a bit so you can understand why this hurts so damn much. Because context matters here, and you need to know what kind of father I've been to really grasp the magnitude of this betrayal. My name is David, I'm 52 years old, and 15 years ago my wife Sarah died in a car accident, leaving me alone to raise our 11-year-old daughter Emily. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. From that moment on, it was just the two of us against the world, and I devoted every single day of my life to making sure she had everything she needed and more. I worked 2 jobs for years, sacrificed my social life, my dating life. Hell, I sacrificed everything to give Emily the childhood and opportunities she deserved. When she wanted piano lessons, I paid for them even when money was tight. When she wanted to go to that expensive private college to study art history, I took out loans and worked overtime to make it happen, never once complaining, because her happiness was all that mattered to me. I was there for every recital, every parent-teacher conference, every heartbreak and triumph. And when she graduated 3 years ago, I bought her a house as a gift, an actual house that cost me $230,000, basically my entire life savings, because I wanted her to have security and a good start in life. So you can imagine how I felt last Tuesday when I was scrolling through Facebook during my coffee break and saw a photo of Emily in a wedding dress, kissing some guy I'd only met twice, with the caption, "Best day of my life. Married to my soulmate." My hand started shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone because my daughter had gotten married and I found out through social media like some random acquaintance. I called her immediately, 5 times in a row until she finally picked up, and when she answered her voice was cold and irritated like I was bothering her. "What do you want, Dad?" she said. And I asked her what the hell was going on. Why wasn't I invited to her wedding? Why didn't she even tell me she was engaged? There was a long pause before she sighed and said, "Marcus didn't want you there, okay? He thinks you're pathetic, always trying to control my life, and honestly, I agree with him." The words hit me like a physical blow, and I couldn't breathe for a moment, couldn't process what I was hearing. "Pathetic? Emily, everything I've ever done has been for you," I said, my voice cracking. But she just responded with that dismissive tone she'd developed since dating Marcus, saying, "I knew you'd make this about you. I'm 26 years old. I don't need your approval anymore." I told her I was coming over to talk face to face, and I drove straight to the house I had bought her, the house that was technically still in my name because we'd never gotten around to transferring the deed. When I arrived, Marcus opened the door with that smirk I'd always hated, this tall guy in his late 20s who was always bragging about his leased BMW. "Oh, it's you," he said, not even pretending to be polite. And when I said I needed to talk to Emily, he actually put his hand on my chest to stop me from entering. "She doesn't want to talk to you. Man, you need to learn some boundaries," he said. And that's when Emily appeared behind him, looking at me with annoyance mixed with what might have been guilt. "Dad, why are you here? I told you on the phone how things are," she said, crossing her arms. And when I begged to talk to her alone, she said, "No, whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of Marcus. He's my husband now." The way she emphasized husband felt like she was deliberately trying to hurt me. I tried to explain that I didn't understand what happened, that we used to be so close, that I'd always supported her, and I just wanted to know what I did wrong. Marcus actually laughed and said, "You really don't get it, do you, old man? You're suffocating, always acting like she owes you something just because you're her dad." "I never said she owed me anything. I just want to be part of her life," I protested, but he just got louder and more aggressive, saying, "Well, she doesn't want you in her life anymore, so why don't you take the hint and leave?" Emily just stood there with her arms crossed, not defending me, not telling him to back off, just watching like I was a stranger causing a scene. "Emily, please, talk to me. Don't let him speak for you," I pleaded, but Marcus stepped fully in front of her and said, "She already told you how she feels. Now get the hell out of here before I make you leave." "You're going to make me leave the house that I bought for my daughter?" I said, my anger finally rising, and Marcus shot back. "Oh, here we go with the 'I bought you everything' speech. You're such a typical narcissistic parent." That's when Emily spoke up and destroyed me completely. "Because I knew you'd try to talk me out of marrying Marcus. You never liked him. You always thought you knew what was best for me. And I'm sick of it. I don't need your approval anymore." I just wanted to be there for one of the most important days of your life, I said, feeling tears forming in my eyes. But she responded coldly, well, you weren't invited, and the wedding was perfect without you. So maybe that tells you something. Marcus put his arm around her possessively and said, you heard her, old man. Your time is done. I'm her family now. She doesn't need a pathetic, controlling father anymore. There was that word again, pathetic, and this time Emily didn't contradict him, didn't defend me, just stood there under his arm looking at me like I was the villain. Emily, please. I whispered one more time, but she just said, just go, Dad. And then Marcus literally pushed me, actually shoved me backward off the porch. I stumbled but caught myself, and for a moment I considered fighting back. But when I looked at Emily's face and saw she wasn't even upset that her husband had just assaulted her father, I knew it was over. I walked back to my car and sat there for 5 minutes, shaking and crying, trying to process what had just happened. As I drove home, something inside me started to change. The hurt began crystallizing into something colder and harder. I had spent 15 years sacrificing everything for Emily, and this was how she repaid me, by choosing some manipulative jerk who convinced her that her father was the enemy. That night I sat in my home office with a bottle of whiskey and started making a list of every financial commitment I'd made, every legal document that still had my name on it. The house was still officially mine. And then there was the honeymoon to the Maldives I'd secretly booked and paid for, 15,000 euros that was supposed to be a surprise gift. There was also the joint bank account where I'd been depositing 500 euros monthly for years, accumulating about 20,000 euros, plus all the monthly bills I still paid like her phone, car insurance, and other subscriptions. As I looked at this list, something became crystal clear. If I was pathetic for caring, if I was controlling for trying to be part of her life, then I needed to step back completely and let Emily and Marcus figure out life on their own without my interference. The whiskey burned as clarity settled over me, the kind that only comes when you've been hurt so badly that something fundamental breaks inside you. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start making some very significant changes, and we'd see just how pathetic Emily thought I was when reality came crashing down on her perfect newlywed life. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I just sat there in my office staring at that list I'd made, drinking whiskey and feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest where my heart used to be. By the time the sun came up, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and for the first time since seeing that wedding photo, I felt completely calm, almost eerily calm, like I'd finally accepted a truth I'd been avoiding for too long. My daughter didn't want me in her life. She'd made that crystal clear, so I was going to give her exactly what she wanted, a life completely free from her pathetic, controlling father. The first thing I did that morning was call the luxury resort in the Maldives where I'd booked Emily and Marcus's honeymoon, that 15,000 euro surprise I'd been so excited to give them. Hi, I need to cancel a reservation under the name Emily Carter, I said to the receptionist, and when she asked if I wanted to reschedule, I said, no, complete cancellation, refund everything back to my credit card. There was a pause before she informed me that due to the cancellation policy, I'd only get back about 60%, but I didn't care. I just wanted it gone, wanted every connection to their perfect wedding severed. Next, I logged into the joint bank account, that account where I'd been depositing 500 euros every month like clockwork for years, and I transferred every single cent back to my personal account. All 20,000 euros of it. Watching the balance drop to zero gave me a satisfaction I didn't know I was capable of feeling. Then I went through every monthly bill I'd been paying for Emily, her phone plan, her car insurance, her streaming subscriptions, her gym membership, all of it, and I called each company one by one to cancel or remove my payment information. But sir, this will result in service interruption. One customer service rep warned me, and I just said, that's exactly what I want, thank you, and hung up. The hardest part, the nuclear option, was the house, that beautiful 3-bedroom house I'd bought for her graduation, the one that was still legally in my name because we'd never completed the paperwork transfer. I called my real estate agent, a woman named Patricia who'd helped me buy the property 3 years ago, and told her I wanted to put it on the market immediately. David, are you sure about this? I thought this was your daughter's house, she said, concerned, and I explained the whole situation to her. How Emily got married without inviting me, how she called me pathetic, how her husband physically pushed me. Patricia was quiet for a moment before saying, list it. I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow. We can probably get 280,000 for it in this market. Which meant I'd actually make a profit. Not that the money mattered anymore. It was the principle. I spent the rest of that day in a strange, focused productivity, organizing documents, signing forms, making calls, dismantling every piece of financial support I'd built for Emily over the years. My phone rang several times, Emily's name flashing on the screen, but I didn't answer. I just let it go to voicemail, and I didn't bother listening to the messages. That evening, exactly 1 week after Emily's wedding, after everything was canceled and the house listing was live, I sent her a single text message. You said I was pathetic and not needed in your life. I've accepted that. You and Marcus are on your own now. Don't contact me again. And then I did something I never thought I'd have the strength to do. I blocked her number, blocked her on every social media platform, deleted every photo of her from my phone, and sat there in the silence of my empty house, feeling simultaneously devastated and liberated. Part of me expected to break down crying, to regret everything and undo it all, but instead I just felt numb, like I'd amputated a diseased limb to save the rest of my body. My daughter wanted to be free of me, and now she was completely and utterly free, and soon she'd learn what that freedom actually cost. For 3 months, I heard nothing from Emily, and honestly, I didn't expect to. I'd moved on with my life, started going to therapy, reconnected with old friends I'd neglected over the years, even went on a few dates, and for the first time in 15 years I was living for myself instead of for someone who clearly didn't appreciate it. The house sold in 6 weeks for $275,000. And I used the profit to finally book that trip to Japan I'd been dreaming about for years, but always postponed because Emily needed something. My therapist told me I was processing grief, that cutting off your child is like a death in the family, and she was right. I was grieving the daughter I thought I had, mourning the relationship I thought we'd built, but I was also healing, slowly but surely. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening in late October, there was a knock on my door, and when I opened it, there stood Emily, and I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight. Her eyes were red and puffy like she'd been crying for days. Her hair was unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing sweatpants and an old jacket I remembered buying her years ago. "Tattoo? Please, can we talk?" she said, using the Ukrainian word for dad that she hadn't called me since she was a little girl, and my heart, that traitorous organ, immediately started breaking all over again. I stood there in the doorway for a long moment, every fiber of my being wanting to pull her into a hug, to tell her everything was okay, to be the dad I'd always been, but I couldn't. Not after what she'd done, not after how she'd made me feel. "What do you want, Emily?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral, and she started crying, actual sobs that shook her whole body. "Can I please come in? I need to tell you something," she begged, and against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She sat on my couch, the same couch where we'd watched movies together when she was young, and she told me everything. How Marcus had been using her, how he'd systematically isolated her from everyone who cared about her, how he'd convinced her that I was toxic and controlling when really he was the one manipulating her. He only wanted me for money, Dad. And when he found out the house was sold and the bank account was empty and there was no honeymoon, he changed completely, she said through tears. Apparently, Marcus had started becoming verbally abusive, calling her stupid for letting me take everything, blaming her for their financial problems. And then 2 weeks ago, she discovered he was cheating on her with another woman, someone with a wealthy family, and he'd already moved out and filed for divorce. I was so stupid. You were right about him. You were right about everything. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, she cried, reaching for my hand, but I pulled back. I looked at this broken young woman on my couch, my daughter, the girl I'd raised and loved and sacrificed everything for, and I felt a complicated mix of emotions: love, anger, pity, resentment, all swirling together in my chest. "Emily, I appreciate you coming here and apologizing. I really do," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. "But you didn't just exclude me from your wedding. You called me pathetic. You stood there while your husband assaulted me. You chose a man who disrespected me over your own father, who gave you everything." She was sobbing harder now, saying she knew. She knew she'd messed up, begging for forgiveness, asking if we could start over. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain, and I said the hardest words I've ever had to say. "Emily, I love you. I will always love you because you're my daughter, but love isn't enough anymore. You broke something between us that can't be fixed with a simple apology." I turned to face her and continued, "If you want to rebuild our relationship, it's going to take time, a lot of time, and it's going to require you to prove through actions, not words, that you actually value me as your father. I'm not going to be your ATM or your safety net anymore. I'm not going to drop everything to fix your problems." She nodded, mascara running down her face, and asked, "Does this mean you're giving me another chance?" And I sighed deeply. "It means I'm willing to try, but we're starting from zero. You want to see me, you call, and we schedule something. You want my help, you ask respectfully and understand I might say no. And most importantly, you need to get yourself together, get therapy, figure out who you are without Marcus or without me rescuing you." I walked her to the door, and before she left, she hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you, Dad. I'll prove I can change, I promise." And I just nodded, watching her walk to her car in the rain. After she left, I sat back down on that couch and let myself cry for the first time in months. Not tears of sadness, but of release, because I'd finally set boundaries, finally stood up for myself, finally realized that being a good father doesn't mean being a doormat. The road ahead would be long and complicated, but at least now it would be on my terms. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.